Hello, we're here today on the Spiegelstraat at one of the oldest icon dealers in Holland. With us today is the second generation of icon dealers in this location, Ferenc Toth. He's going to tell us a little of the fascinating history of icons. Ferenc, could you tell me first a little of the history of icons themselves?
Yes. First of all, I have to explain what the word icon means. The meaning of the word icon is portrait or likeness, and it comes from a Greek word icon. When you look at the icons, they date from the 6th century. But the origin of these icons go back to the ancient world, where there were already portraits, let's say icons. I will give you just two small examples. The first one was the portrait of the divine emperor. During the feast days, the people they carried on panels the portrait of the divine emperor. The reason for this was that when you looked at the small panel of the divine emperor, you not only looked at the panel, no, you looked at him as he was really there. That was the meaning of the panel of the divine emperor. The second part, or the second example, is the funerary portraits. These funerary portraits came from the Fayum Delta. If you look at these funerary portraits, they were made by the encaustic technique. This technique is a mixture of wax and paint, and they burned it with a red-hot iron into the wood, and they made out a portrait of it. This piece of wood, they or carry it around, or they put this piece of wood on the head of the dead people, so that they had a visible contact with the dead people. And this is of a great importance for the Christian portraiture. If we compare the oldest find icons, where they found in the 6th century at Mount Sinai, we see that these icons were also made by the encaustic technique. So that's the reason why these funerary portraits were of main importance for the icons. And let's say in general, the icons started in the 6th century in the Fayum Delta. And from the Fayum Delta, it spread out to Ethiopia, to Egypt. From Egypt it went to Syria, and then slowly to Greece, to the Byzantine, and then in the 10th century in Kiev it entered into Russia. So there it came in Kiev. Let's say Kiev is the original spot in Russia where we found the first icons in that country. And from Kiev it spread out all over Russia. First it went to Vladimir Suzdal, then to Novgorod, to Pskov, to Moscow, and so all over Russia till today. So that is just in general how the icons came from the Fayum Delta to Russia. I can tell that in a few hours, but I think it will be too much to tell the whole detailed story. So in general, it started the 6th century till today in Russia.
Now your specialty here really is Russian icons. Why are those so special?
For me they are special because I grew up with these Russian icons. And my point of view, they are more conservative, the Russian icons, not so extended. I like the soberness and the inside power of a Russian icon.
Now what did the Russian people use these icons for?
They used these icons, that's my point of view. It was a visible reminder for the invisible belief. You can compare it here in Holland. We use the Bible to get deeper into the love, into the belief. And the Russian people, they used an icon to achieve this point.
Now in your collection you have, as I've noticed, a wide variety of motifs or different images that are conveyed here. Could you tell us a little about some of those?
You can compare them into two groups. The first group is the narrative icons, on which the story is. But you have also a mediative icon, on which one saint is depicted. And for example, I have here a Saint Nicholas icon. Saint Nicholas, he is the protecting saint of Russia, and he's one of the most important saints for whole Russia. He was the bishop of Myra and lived in the 4th century. For me, Saint Nicholas is my favorite saint. Although, to be honest, he's also the protecting saint of the youth, the protecting saint of the house and of the family. And the Russian people, they loved Saint Nicholas. Not because they get a lot of presents at his birthday, the 6th of December, but also that he was the protecting saint of their house. And each believer had in their holy corner 3 icons. That was a Christ icon, a Mother of God icon, and a Saint Nicholas icon. That was the basic of their collection, let's say their collection. And they had, the Saint Nicholas always moved to the front door. You probably ask, why to the front door? Because he's the patron saint of the house. When he was at the front door and people entered the house, they first greeted the Saint Nicholas icon and then the host and the hostess. And that's also the reason why he's so important for the Russian people.
Well, let me ask you, looking at this particular icon, there are a number of figures that are around the outside. Could you explain a few of those?
Yes, this is typical the family icon, because Saint Nicholas is surrounded by some different saints. For example, the 3 above, central, the Christ, the Mother of God, and Saint John. It's called the Deiesis. This is the prey. On the left side, the Archangel Michael. The right side, Archangel Gabriel. The apostles Peter and Paul. The 3 church fathers, Basileus, Gregorius, and Johannes. And also the bishop Athanasius. Down, it's the bishop Antipas. Antipas is the protecting saint of the dentists. Then Florus and Laurus, they are the protecting saints of the cattle. Then Elijah, he was always asked for fire. And Artemis, he was once hurt by the fire. So these are all depicted saints from the family. They are always painted on request on the icon.
Now this icon that we're looking at right now is from what century?
It is early 17th century. And you can see it like, when I compare it with a 19th century icon, the 19th century icon is more, they use more colors. For this icon, they painted it with their soul. The soul and the love during the centuries is interwoven with this icon.
Now in it, it conveys the Saint Nicholas.
Yes.
Was there a school of painters that just specialized in St. Nicholas and another school? How were the schools of icon painters divided up, and did they have names?
Yes, for example, this icon has got a Novgorod influence in it. It's one of the famous icon painter schools from Novgorod. It isn't particular a Novgorod icon, because there are some provincial styles in this icon. But coming back on the question, there are no different schools who just painted the Saint Nicholas. All the schools, for example, the school of Moscow, the school of Pskov, of Yaroslav, they all painted it the Saint Nicholas, because he was a very important saint.
Let me ask you a monetary question about this one. What is an icon of this nature valued at?
The value of this icon is 65,000 guilders.
And what makes them more or less valuable?
It's first the quality of the icon, the depiction of the icon, and also how did they conserve the icon. I better prefer a fantastic 19th century icon than a bad 17th century icon, because then I have to restore it. And what is a restored icon? Is that an icon or is that a restored piece of wood? So it's very difficult to say, what is the point? It's a combination of 3 facts. It is the quality. How did they conserve it? Is it restored too much? And what is the depiction of the icon?
Now, how did they make these? I mean, you say panel. It's obviously on wood.
It is on wood, so you can see on the back side. It's typical wood. They always put in the wood a spunky, because the wood is curving. And this is to protect the wood against curving, otherwise it will burst. And on the wood, they put some textile, and on the textile they have the gesso. This is the white and the ground on the icon, to make the textile wet, so it will, how do they call that in English? Absorb to the wood. And on the wood there's then the gesso. Then they put on gold leaf on it, and while the gold leaf is so thin, they paint on the gold leaf. And the gold leaf is here under it, and that gives the warm color of the icon.
I've noticed that some of those that you have displayed here have silver around them.
Yes.
What is that? What is the purpose of that?
The silver, they put on the silver on the icon first to protect the icon against the damages, because people they always like to touch an icon or to kiss an icon. That in the first way. The second way is the special honor to the icon. That they added then the silver later. Because of some miraculous wonder what happened, they said we have to give this icon a special present. What kind of present can we give? We make a nice silver or a silver gilded cover for the icon, inlaid with some stones.
Now you mentioned various schools of icon painting. What is the difference in these schools, and what are the schools?
The schools, for example, one of the most famous icon painting schools is Palech. Palech is famous because of his miniature technique of painting the icons. Then you have Yaroslav, also a famous icon painting school. And then the older schools like Pskov and Novgorod and Moscow. But it's very difficult without any icon to show you the difference, because you have to see what the differences is. It's the same, you cannot learn these icons, the differences from a book. And when I have to tell it now, it's so difficult, because you have to see 5 icons from 5 different schools. And when you compare then the icons, then you see, yes, I now can see the difference. Because most times, a school from Moscow have some points from school of Novgorod. They use the same style sometimes when the icon painters are changing their experience.
Now the icon painters, here in the West we have Rembrandt, we have Michelangelo, we've named our painters. They're famous, they're almost like rock stars are today.
Yes.
Are there icon painters like that?
In the past, there were. For example, one of the most famous icon painters was Rublev. Rublev, he made the Holy Trinity. Although no one had seen the Holy Trinity as such, in 1551 they made a dogma in the Russian Orthodox Church that the only prototype of painting a Holy Trinity was like Rublev did it. He made his masterpiece, and that was the Holy Trinity. And if you ask someone, can you tell me a famous icon painter? Then I think, let's say,
Thank you very much for telling us about icons.
You're welcome.